bum. Bada bum bum. Bum 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 bum. Hello. My name is M. Kosler, and this is, again, not a Prog Reborn, but we're again looking at the Final Fantasy Magic the Gathering collaboration. What was spoiled, everything that was spoiled up to yesterday, this time from the the Commander product. We spent 5 hours yesterday going over everything that was spoiled up to this point that is standard legal from the standard set. And I do play some Commander. In fact, that's probably the most that I play physically of the physical card game. For standard, I primarily play on Arena. So I do have some understanding of the format, but I'm not gonna have an encyclopedic understanding of the format. I'm mostly going to just look at these cards sort of based on power level, based on how interesting they are, maybe even some sort of reference implications, a lot less analytical than what I was looking at the standard cards, because Commander is such a wide open format, and gets played from extremely casual to extremely competitive, that it's really hard for a card not to have some viability somewhere. You know, you can argue that like random combat tricks are probably not going to see Commander play, but that's not even always true. So just sort of thinking about how cool this card is, how interesting this card is, where you could play this card. Are there any interesting implications for the card? Rather than trying to like fit it into specific decks or think about like the explicit power level of the card. So let's go ahead and get started. Hopefully we got the right window. There we are. So we're going in Wooburg order, and then in alphabetical within Wooburg. And again, this will include cards that were spoiled prior to yesterday, but since I haven't yet spoken about them, we're gonna act like they're brand new. So first up, we have a card from the Final Fantasy XIV Commander deck, the Hildebrand Manderville. For 1 and a white, we have a legendary creature, Human Detective, at rare. He is a 2/2, and creature tokens you control get +1/+1. And when Hildebrand Manderville dies, you may cast it from your graveyard as an adventure until the end of your next turn. And then we should look at the adventure side as well. The adventure is Gentleman's Rise. For 2 and a black, we get an instant adventure that creates a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Pretty small ball, I would think, from Commander, for, you know, a Commander card. This has a lot of parallels to a card that does see standard play in Mosswood Dread Knight, in the fact that every time that Hildebrand dies, you get another shot at using the adventure to create a zombie, whereas Mosswood Dread Knight, it's draw a card and lose a life. Here it's create a zombie token. And then every time Hildebrand reappears, you know, those 2/2 zombies that you made become 3/3s. Pretty nice sort of token anthem effect. But again, I'd say pretty small ball for Commander. Flavor-wise, obviously Hildebrand is a beloved part of Final Fantasy XIV. We have Nashu in the background over here, tossing a bomb at Hildebrand, getting ready to blow him up. We as well, see if you can see this, the zombie tokens that are generated perfectly resemble the zombies that you see in Southern Thanalan. When you first do, there's the fate that you need to do at the start of the ARR quest lines for Hildebrand, that are all trying to mimic Hildebrand's gentlemanly ways. Very fun card, lots of flavor. I think a little small ball for Commander, but it does sort of hint that, you know, this is in the deck that has Ishtola. This does hint that there's a sub-theme inside that deck that deals with tokens. So, interesting there. Next up, we have a Secret Rendezvous. And so there are, in fact, 4 different versions of this. Yeah, there are 4 different versions that came out here. There's one for each of the companions in Final Fantasy VII that you could take on the gondola date in the Gold Saucer. Here, where the one depicted here is Yuffie. I believe the one that's going to come in the Commander product is the one with Tifa, as opposed to Yuffie. The rest are from the collector's boosters. I think that's the only way that they would appear. So if you're looking to ship any particular characters, you're gonna have to pay a premium if you're not shipping Cloud and Tifa. But anyways, the card itself, it's a reprint. It's been in Commander since, or it's been in Magic since Strixhaven. For 1 white, we get a sorcery at uncommon that says, you and target opponent each draw 3 cards. Pretty good. Pretty good effect in Commander. Sort of politicking effect in Commander. 3 mana for draw 3 is a very good rate. You are having to give that 3 to somebody, but you can use that. You can use that card draw that you're giving to the other person as a way to get them to not attack you, or to try and get them to deal with some other problem. So, an interesting card. Next up, for the Final Fantasy VI Commander deck, we have Summon Esper Valigarmanda. In FF6, if you played the, FF3, FF6, the English version, this is Tritok, but actual name Valigarmanda. It's 3-0 red for a 3/3 flying haste Saga Drake. So it's an enchantment creature and a Drake. Just stat-wise there, 4 mana 3/3 flying haste. Decent body. If this was in standard, that'd be pretty good. So what next? The first chapter of this saga is exile an instant or sorcery card from each graveyard. So in Commander, that's going to be, you're going to exile 4 instants or sorceries, assuming that there are there's an instant or sorcery in each player's graveyard. Not guaranteed, but let's just assume that people are playing something. And then chapters 2, 3, and 4, you have add red for each lore counter on this saga. You may cast an instant or sorcery card exiled with this saga, and mana of any type can be used to cast that spell. So you have to make your decision at that point immediately with Valley Armada. So that's at your the beginning of your pre-combat main phase. So you will have seen the card that you drew. So you could decide, you know, I'd rather than dump my mana into one of the instants or sorceries in the graveyard, I'll play, you know, whatever from my hand. But you really are incentivized to try and use up the cards that you exiled. You would only, if you hit the maximum 4 instants and sorceries, you would only ever get to cast 3 of them, assuming you had enough mana to cast 3 of them. It's going to be pretty hard not to cast all 3 of them, given the fact that this gives you increasing amounts of red each time. So chapter 2, you get 2 red. Chapter 3, you get 3 red. Chapter 4, you get 4 red. Also note that, you know, this is a saga, and this, oh, right, this also has haste. So, since this has 4 chapters, you do get 3 hits in with Valley Armada, as opposed to a lot of the other sagas that we talked about yesterday. You would only ever get 1 hit in with the actual creature on the saga, the summon. I think this is a great card. Tons of value for 4 mana, as long as you know the table is playing instants and sorceries. You might run into some issues if you're just trying to, like, you know, curve into this. But I think even if you're the only one who puts something into here, you can since you're getting the mana from the chapters 2, 3, and 4 in your pre-combat main, even if you don't have like a ton to use from the exile that you got from the first ability, you're gonna get a lot of mana ramp so that you can play some big spells or multi-spell pretty early on in a commander game. So I think this is a great card. Very happy that I ordered a FF6 commander deck. Next up, we have Emmett Selk of the Third Seat. So there's the standard legal Emmett Selk. This is the Emmett Selk in the FF14 commander deck, and we have him decked out as Emperor Solus here, as opposed to him walking around Almarat, which what we're hearing in the background for the music here. So that's neat. It's basically the same gear, but you know, we've got the General Pauldrons, and he's sitting in front of the throne in Garlemald. But anyways, more about the actual card. It's a for 2 blue and a black. We have a legendary creature, Elder Wizard, at rare. He's a 3/4. Spells you cast from your graveyard cost 2 less to cast. Whenever one or more opponents lose life, you may cast target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard. If that spell would be put into your graveyard, exile it instead. Do this only once each turn. That is pretty powerful, right? So you swing in, you do anything to hurt your opponent, and this doesn't say, only during your turn. So even if you bump in the night, I don't know, do something in black to force your opponent to take damage, or your opponents are just fighting each other rather than fighting you, and one of them takes a hit. You then get the opportunity after combat to cast an instant or sorcery. Note that if it is combat damage, I should say, yeah. So hold on. I think this gets around timing because this forces you to cast it. I believe that's true. I'd have to actually look into it, but I believe this gets around timing restrictions because it doesn't say until the end of your turn. It just says you may cast. So I was gonna make a comment, but I believe you could have a wrath if you wanted to. I don't know if you'd really want to, but maybe if you have some sort of wrath that doesn't kill Emmett. So your opponents attack each other, you then bring something back from your graveyard, and boom, kill one of your opponent's creatures, do something. Pretty powerful effect on Emmett here. And the fact that you're also getting, your spells are also cheaper, so that as you go around the board, you're more likely to be able to play multiple spells as you go around the board, rather than having to like pick the moment to play like the one spell that you have enough mana for. Yeah, pretty great card in my opinion. Moving on down to the Final Fantasy VII Commander deck's Sephiroth. So we've seen two other Sephiroths already, the starter deck Sephiroth and the standard legal Sephiroth. Technically the starter deck Sephiroth is standard legal, but I mean the one specifically in booster packs. So Sephiroth Fallen Hero here, that is in Commander, the Commander product, so not legal and standard, says for 3 red and a white, we get a legendary creature, human avatar soldier. Again, avatar. There's a ton of avatars, which is really weird. Always have to think in my head. Can't be picked up by Baelmerk. We get a 7/5 that has Genova cells. Whenever Sephiroth attacks, you may put a cell counter on target creature. Until end of turn, each modified creature you control has base power and toughness 7/5. And they're just reminding you what modified means. It's if a creature is equipped, has auras, or has any kind of counter, not just +1/+1, any kind of counter, then they are modified. And then the reunion for 3 generic and sacrifice a modified creature. Return this card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. There's no timing restriction, no activate only as a sorcery going on here. So pretty nice reanimation effect. Obviously, if you got board wiped, you can't immediately get Sephiroth back onto the battlefield, but the flavor, again, flavor-wise, pretty darn great, right? The whole thing with the reunion and all the hooded, cloaked folks that you meet in and around Midgar and trying to make it to the Northern Crater are folks that have been implanted with Genova cells, just like Sephiroth was, and Genova is trying to reunite itself together, and so they're all marching their way to there, and they're all basically Sephiroth. Sephiroth kinda can manifest out of these Sephiroth / Genova can kind of manifest itself out of these infected folks. And then more explicitly, you can literally return Sephiroth from one of these modified creatures. It's an attack trigger, which is nice. So, you're attacking with multiple things. You can immediately turn something else, some token, some 1/1 into a 7/5. Pretty nice effect. No evasion, no trample. Though I imagine in this deck, this is pretty equipment based, I believe. We don't know for certain, but it's almost guaranteed that it's going to be equipment based. You'll be able to find a way to give trample, to give first strike, to give flying from the equipment that you have in your deck. So that's where you're going to get your evasion, and you can just start really giving it to your opponents. Pretty good card. Next up, back to the land of Final Fantasy XIV, we have Grahatia, Scion Reborn. For white, blue, and a black, we get a legendary creature, Cat Wizard. At Mythic, he is a 2/3 with lifelink, and throw wide the gates. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you may pay X life, where X is that spell's mana value. If you do, create a 1/1 colorless hero creature token and put X +1/+1 counters on it. Do this only once each turn. Let me just talk about the card from a gameplay perspective. I think it's pretty nice. So sort of going back onto the token theme that we saw from Hildebrand, this is a way to generate additional tokens through casting non-creature spells at the cost of some of your life. You're able to gain some of that life back with Graha. If you have some way to increase the amount of counters that each of these heroes that get brought in, then you can kind of get out of control. But you're also just able to build a fairly wide board, and if you're playing more of a controlling deck, again, you can hold up mana and still get this effect on other players' turns. So do something on your turn, do something else on an opponent's turn, do something else on another opponent's turn, etc., etc., etc. I love this card because it is so incredibly flavorful. They knocked it out of the park with this one. So obvious big spoilers for Final Fantasy XIV. Grahatia is somebody you meet fairly early in the game, but is part of what was for a while side content, became required content. You then are when just before the Shadowbringers expansion happens, you are sort of psychically intruded on by an enigmatic figure who is sort of telling you that whatever path that you're trying to do to fight the Garlean Empire just leads to ruin, leads to apocalypse, to Armageddon, and that figure repeats the phrase, "Throw wide the gates that we may pass," a bunch during these intrusions that you have. And over again, the scions that you are working with start collapsing and sort of become catatonic, become comatose, and y'all don't really know what's happening. Eventually it happens to you, and you end up on a reflection, they call it a reflection, a shard of your world, where that world has already experienced a near apocalypse, near Armageddon, but was saved from it based off of things that happened a couple of expansions previously, that were just sort of barely mentioned. But you then end up in this place and you meet this enigmatic figure, and you eventually learn that it is this Grahatia that you kind of barely met before. But all this, not to go too much into detail into the story of Shadowbringers, but essentially what the effect is showing is it's him casting his, you know, like teleportation spell, the spell that he'd been casting a bunch to try and pull you from the source to this shard, to this reflection, and every time that he does it, he loses some of his life force. He loses some of his humanity. He loses some of his being doing it. And so he's pulling these heroes from across the rift, the scions that he pulled earlier, and then you, costing him some of his life every time that he does it. And he can't do it a bunch. He has to take time to do it, which you learn in Shadowbringers that while it has only been days between, or maybe even hours between some of your scions being pulled across the rift, in the first, it ends up being often years between the times that he makes these attempts. So that sort of that even goes into the do this only once each turn. So huge flavor win. Flavor wise, probably my favorite card in the set. Just incredible. All right. Next up, we have the face commander of the Final Fantasy XIV commander set, or commander deck. It's Y'shtola Knights Blessed for 1, a white, a blue, and a black, so 4 total. We have a legendary creature, Cat Warlock, at Mythic. She is a 2/4 with Vigilance. And at the beginning of each instep, if a player lost 4 or more life this turn, you draw a card. And then whenever you cast a non-creature spell with mana value 3 or greater, Y'shtola deals 2 damage to each opponent, and you gain 2 life. So, pretty powerful commander, and pretty straightforward build around, I think, right? You're wanting to cast these big spells to try and deal, that ends up dealing a lot of damage to the whole board. You're not in red, so you don't get to, it's a little, you have to work a little bit harder to get that, if a player lost 4 or more life this turn, from your own, if you're the only one who's making that effect happen. But as well, she is gaining you life, so even being this obvious big threat. You're surviving through this, through the game. Like I said, I think a pretty straightforward card to play around. The interesting thing about the first ability, the first triggered ability, is it's at the beginning of each instep, and it doesn't really care if who lost the life or how that life was lost. If you are the one causing the life loss, sure, fine. If you got hit by an opponent, cool, you still draw a card. If your opponents are fighting each other and they do 4 or more to each other, sick, I draw a card. You only get this trigger once, no matter how many people lost 4 or more life that turn, or how many multiples of 4 or more life that they lost. But still, if Y'shtola is just sitting on the battlefield and people are getting into combat, hitting each other, doing just typical gameplay stuff, you're going to end up just drawing cards regardless. So being a card advantage engine in the command zone, as well as being a enabler for her own card advantage engine in the command zone, pretty powerful commander. I think a lot of people are excited about Y'shtola. And there's not a ton more to say. Flavor-wise, you know, it's her from when she is in the first. The outfit's great. This is some excellent excellent art for Y'shtola. I think I prefer this one to the anime art. Magalide knocked it out of the park here. Looks great. I don't really know how. I don't know a ton of how that really how this works with her character or with like particular story events. You can kind of say, okay, she's a black mage, so she's casting big spells or whatever, but I don't know. It's a lot more surface level than you'd get from than you got from like Graha. Moving on to our face commander for the Final Fantasy VII commander deck. We have Cloud X Soldier for 2, a red, a green, and a white. We get a legendary creature, human soldier mercenary at Mythic, and he is a 4/4 with haste, 5 mana 4/4 haste, pretty good stat line. When Cloud enters, attach up to 1 target equipment you control to it. So you set up something earlier, and Cloud immediately picks up that sword or picks up whatever and runs with it. And then whenever Cloud attacks, draw a card for each equipped attacking creature you control. Then if Cloud has 7 power or greater, create 2 treasure tokens. So if you have an equipment and Cloud is the only other creature that you have on the battlefield, then you'll at least draw a card on attack. Because Cloud's going to have an equipment attached to him 90% of the time. You play Cloud, equipment enters, attach an equipment to him, going to draw a card. If that equipment gives an additional 3 power, then you also get a little ramp with these 2 treasure tokens. Pretty cool, pretty powerful card. This kind of sort of like stompy style deck isn't really my forte in Commander, so I don't know where he stands in, you know, other Naya commanders that are trying to be aggressive, or other equipment-based commanders out there that might not necessarily be Naya, but 5-mana or 5-mana 4/4 haster that immediately equips something and draws you a card doesn't seem bad to me. So, moving on to one of the other legendaries, one of the other commanders that can come in your Final Fantasy VII commander deck. We have Tifa, Martial Artist, for 1, a red, a green, and a white. We get a legendary creature, Human Monk, at Mythic. Tifa is a 4/4 with melee, which is whenever this creature attacks, if it gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each opponent you attacked this combat. So she's incentivizing you attempting to attack multiple people at a time. And then whenever one or more creatures you control with power 7 or greater deals combat damage to a player, untap all creatures you control. If it's the first combat phase of your turn, there is an additional combat phase after this phase. So if there are still 3 players in the game and you are able to attack 3 different players, then you will at least have Tifa with 7 power. Now, she currently doesn't have anything that would guarantee that she's getting damage through, but, you know, obviously you can do what you can to try and force that damage through so that you can get that extra combat step. There's a little less need for sort of an equipment-based strategy here with Tifa, so you could argue that Tifa might end up being a little bit better than Cloud for just a generic Naya Stompy deck, but pretty powerful effect. Again, it's super hard to say to be super critical on these commander cards, because they're all fine, they're all playable, but yeah, I mean, she seems nice. She seems like she can get the job done. Extra combat steps is super cool. Unlike Cloud, she doesn't have card advantage built into her, so you're either a lot more all in, or you're gonna have to try to find that card advantage in other ways. But yeah, perfectly fine card there with Tifa. Moving on to, I refuse to say Titus, Yuna's Guardian, for Bant. So for a green, a white, and a blue, we have a legendary creature, Human Warrior, at Mythic. He is a 3/3 who has, at the beginning of combat on your turn, you may move a counter from target creature you control onto a second target creature you control. And Cheer, whenever one or more creatures you control with counters on them deal combat damage to a player, you may draw a card and proliferate. Do this only once each turn. So even though, so the wording is weird, even though the wording has the wording where if you have one creature deal damage to one player, one creature deal damage to another player, and then round it out. Even if you dealt damage to all 3 players, all 3 opponents on the battlefield, combat damage to all 3 opponents on the battlefield, you still only get the card draw and proliferate once. But regardless, proliferate is a busted mechanic. And pretty obviously, Titus is trying to work with counters. It doesn't specify 1/1 counters, but that's likely what you're going to be going for, especially if you're trying to proliferate. As well, he is card advantage from the command zone. You know, I think pretty sweet in any sort of counters synergy decks that want to play Bant. Not much else to say here. I think he's great. You can move lore counters from summons. Right. So that you can get additional triggers of whatever effect that you're looking for. Right. Very true. Which plays greatly with the next card that we have here, Yuna Grand Summoner. For 1 green, white, and a blue, you get a legendary creature, Human Cleric, at Mythic. She is a 1/5 with Grand Summon. You can tap her to add 1 mana of any color. When you next cast a creature spell this turn, that creature enters with 2 additional +1/+1 counters on it. And then whenever another permanent you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, if it had 1 or more counters on it, you may put that number of +1/+1 counters on target creature. So note on the second ability there that the type of counters that were on the creature when it got removed don't have to be 1/1 counters, just like what Scarlett talked about here. Really is going to work well with the summon creatures, the enchantment creature sagas that are being introduced in this set. That will likely be all throughout this commander deck. I want to see what Veil 4 looks like. I want to see what Anima looks like. Both of them I can't imagine are not in this deck. And so being able to, you're chaining together all these, excuse me, you're chaining together all these summons and, just making each additional one bigger and bigger and bigger. And she helps you get those summons out earlier. She seems great. Hard to fault Yuna. The only thing that she's really missing is card advantage from her. But you're playing blue, you're playing green, you'll find a way. So yeah, she seems great and especially cool because she works great with one of the big incoming mechanics in the set, in those summon enchantment creature sagas. Next on down, we have Celis Rune Knight. This is from the FF6 commander deck. For 1, a red, a white, and a black, we get a legendary creature, Human Wizard Knight, at Mythic. Celis is a 4/4, and when she enters, discard any number of cards, then draw that many cards +1. And whenever 1 or more creatures you control enter, if 1 or more of them entered from a graveyard or is cast from a graveyard, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Pretty straightforward here, right? So she lets you dump, you have a hand that has a Grave Crawler or Bloodghast or whatever have you. Things that cheaply and easily can be brought back from the graveyard. You can dump those into the graveyard, draw up a bunch of other stuff, draw up a bunch of like cheap reanimation things, unearths, exhumes, reanimate, animate dead, whatever have you. She can build up a big board pretty quickly if you have ways to recur those things from your graveyard. I think she plays mostly better with sort of small ball reanimation, like your unearths, like your helping hands, recommissions, things like that, than doing, you know, big creatures, big reanimation stuff. So I think she seems great. Yeah, first ability works well with the second ability. Hard to say no with Celis here. Now the face commander of that commander deck is Terra, Herald of Hope. So for a Mardu, a red, a white, and a black, we get a legendary creature, human, wizard, warrior at Mythic. Terra is a 3/3, and she also has Trance, but this is not the same Trance from the standard set. At the beginning of combat on your turn, mill 2 cards. Terra gains flying until end of turn. And whenever Terra deals combat damage to a player, you may pay 2 generic. When you do, return target creature card with power 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So Terra works very well with Celis in that you are doing this sort of small ball reanimation, but she does the reanimating, whereas Celis cares about the things that were reanimated. She also fuels her own graveyard every time that you get to the beginning of combat. So you play this, even if you're not attacking, this triggers, play this pre-combat. She gives herself flying, so she gives herself evasion, so she's more likely to be able to do that combat damage to a player. You can almost certainly find somebody at the table who does not have flying or reach when it's time to get in. I think Terra is great. Just constantly recurring that stuff from your graveyard. You know, bringing back Fleshbag Marauder over and over, or whatever have you, just seems sick. So I think they knocked it out of the park here. As far as flavor wise, I think when they initially revealed the face commanders and the commander sets, they were playing a little bit more into the world of Ruin, as opposed to specifically like what is Terra about. I think the standard set Terra is much more about the flavor and the story of the character Terra, whereas this, even though, you know, she has Trance as an ability word here, the effects are much more about, you know, we're in the world of Ruin, everything's in the graveyard, but we're trying to rebuild from what Kefka did. So, other thing to note before I go too much further, I did remember this. She cares about power less than 3, so it doesn't necessarily have to be cheap mana value creatures. It can be expensive creatures that she's bringing back, but if they have a lower power. She's not in blue. You know, the prototypical choice whenever I think about something like that is Agent of Treachery. She's not in blue, so she can't do that sort of shenanigans, but there's bound to be some sick expensive creatures with low power that she can bring back. So keep that in mind when you're trying to build your Terra deck. And then I think this is the only one that well, I shouldn't say the only one, but one of the few cards that were revealed yesterday for that was new and specific to Commander set. This card itself isn't new. It's a reprint, but the art's super sick. So it's Herald's Horn for 3 generic. We get an artifact at rare. As this artifact enters, choose a creature type. Creature spells you cast of the chosen type cost 1 less to cast. And at the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. If it's a creature card of the chosen type, you may reveal it and put it into your hand. So when did this actually first get printed? This was... Is that Commander 17? Yeah, seems like it. I think it's fine. You know, if you're in a Kindred deck that is lacking in card draw, this is an option to choose from. Mostly the art's just super sick, and it's one, I believe it's one of the Mughals from the Good King Moogle fight. But is it though? We're pretty obviously, well, I shouldn't say that. There's fireworks going in the background. We do see some trees, so we're probably in the Black Shroud. But is this somebody who's explicitly from the Good King Moogle fight? I don't know. I think most of those Mughals are dressed in some way. Even the Bard is dressed like, you know, with like the Robin Hood archer's cap, and it has a bow, right? So this might just be a generic Moogle in Black Shroud. I can't really think of something specific. There is a Moogle, now that I'm thinking about it, there is a Moogle that's specific to the Bard quest line in Final Fantasy XIV that sort of introduced the guy who ends up being your Bard mentor. I forget the exact name of it. Who like gives the gift of song or something like that to a guy who was previously sort of just an archer of Gridania. So it might be some sort of reference to that, rather than just Good King Moogle. But if it is, that's a pretty deep cut. I don't know if they're going to get that deep. They did talk about how, you know, there's different tiers of references that they would be doing for the set, you know, things that everybody knows. Everybody knows Cloud, versus, you know, things that people might know, if they're have surface level understanding, like the Secret Rendezvous cards, right? You probably, if you've played Final Fantasy VII, then you probably remember the gondola ride, stuff like that. They did say that there might be some references where, like, wow, you pulled that out of the hat. But I think that they're more referencing things like our boy Hildebrand up here than they are referencing a random Moogle from the Bard questline. But yeah, let's do a quick little refresh to see if anything new has shown up since I started the stream here. I think it still says 14 cards, then we're at everything done there. Haven't even hit an hour, so I think what we'll do is let's take a look at the Through the Ages cards. We only have a couple. No, I guess we have more. Let's see. So by color, full cards. I guess there's probably not that much of a difference between cards and all prints. So these are cards that are, they call them booster fun. It's cards that can show up in both collectors and regular booster packs. They are not necessarily standard legal. If the card that they are representing is standard legal for some other reason, because it's in standard right now, then it would be standard legal. But because Firion Swordmaster is showing up here, it doesn't make SRAM Senior Artificer standard legal. I do believe if you happen to rip this, since they do show up in play boosters, if you happen to rip Firion Swordmaster in draft or in your sealed pool, during pre-release, then you'll probably be able to use SRAM slash Furion here. But outside of that scenario, these existing doesn't necessarily mean that they are standard legal. So keep that in mind. I think what we're just going to look through here is just admiring the art, just admiring the references here. I don't know a ton about Final Fantasy II, so I'm not going to be able to say a lot here, but it's always nice to see some Amano art. They mentioned it in the PAX panel, how they made a conscious effort to highlight the entirety of the art, which I think is good and bad, right? There's some art, like I think this Furion art is super, super sick. But it really like barely looks like a Magic card to me. It looks a lot better, a lot more like a Magic card than like, you know, some of the weird secret layers out there. But it looks kind of weird. It looks to me like this is like a proxy, where somebody is like, okay, I'm just gonna take this sick art of Furion, and you know, I have a general idea of what the text looks like, but I'm gonna put drop shadow around everything. That's basically what they did to make the text sort of stand out. Riposte in the or Ripose in the chat said, like the Final Fantasy TCG. I haven't played a ton of the Final Fantasy TCG, or I shouldn't say I haven't played a ton. I haven't played any of the Final Fantasy TCG. I have a general idea of what the cards look like, and a lot of them are kind of like, here's just this sort of picture of. I realized my music stopped, so let me get that started again. I think some of the complaints that people have about the Final Fantasy TCG is it's kind of just like the art, some concept art that they have with text slapped on top of it, as opposed to what you see a lot with the Magic stuff, where it's unique art built specifically for the game. And that's sort of the feeling I get for a lot of these. And so you're really there to be like, do I think that this art is cool enough, at least in my opinion, do I think that this art is cool enough to overcome the fact that it kind of looks sloppy? And I do really like this Furion art, but some of them, we'll get to some of them, I think look terrible. So let's move on. This was a new one shown yesterday, the Imperial City of Arcades. This is Wall of Omens. This one's pretty nice, though I do worry that it's going to be hard to parse what this looks, hard to parse the card. Luckily, Wall of Omens is pretty straightforward. But like, if somebody happens to get like a foil of this, are you going to be able to even read what the card does? And I don't know enough about FF12, so I don't really know a ton about the Imperial City of Arcades. So I can't make too many references here. Wall of Omens itself is a great card. Has seen play for years and years in various different formats. So not always nice to see a reprint. But if you're just looking for a copy of Wall of Omens, they're 10 cents at most major card shops in the US. This one I am super disappointed about. So this is a Japanese exclusive buy a box promo. This is, I believe this is, what's it called? Arcane Denial? Yes, this is Arcane Denial. And it depicts the Endsinger casting, what's the name of the fucking spell? Ugh. To translate Japanese, is she Japanese to English. Why do I want to translate Japanese to Japanese? Isle of Mysteries. That's not enough for me to know what is being cast. It's the planet explosion spell from the trial, where she's hurling planets at you. Super sick art. Love the art. But disappointed that you can only get this if you buy a Japanese buy box, which, you know, tit for tat a little bit, right? They revealed that the what you call it, the serialized golden chocobos are English only, so we get one, they get one. Sucks if you're in Europe, you get neither. But yeah. And then next up we have, I believe this is Force of Negation. Yeah, well, it literally says it right there. Though I don't know what the Ultimacia spell is that she's casting is called. Force of Negation's a very powerful card. Sees play in lots of sees tons of play in Modern, sees tons of play in Legacy. Sees some play in Commander. I think most people probably play Fierce Guardianship over Force of Negation, but if you're like really trying to be a blue mage, you maybe play both. But the art's super sick, and I've got the FOMO, so I'm more pissed about the Endsinger than the Ultimacia, but I guess this isn't Ultimacia. This is, I don't know enough about FF8. This is the lady, the other lady. Is the bad guy in there. Anyways, somebody will correct me. Dragon of Mount Golg is an Ancient Copper Dragon reprint. They need to print more copies of Ancient Copper Dragon. Well, yes and no, right? I'm looking over here. You can't see it on the cutout of the Scryfall screen that I have here, but it's $100 card at the cheapest. This one currently is sitting at $150, but that's pre-release prices. We don't know how often this is going to be printed, but it's probably still going to be super expensive because it's got some sick ass Amano art. This is FF1. Though Mount Golg is referenced in FF14, but that's also just an FF1 reference. Super sick art. And a card that needs a lot more reprints. I was saying needs a lot more reprints so that people can actually get access to it, but maybe it doesn't need a lot more reprints, because if more people have access to it, then you're going to end up seeing Ancient Copper Dragon more often in your commander pods. Obviously, people probably are just proxying it if they really wanted it, but some people don't like proxies and would rather have the actual thing and are not going to play it unless they have actual access to it. So they need to reprint more of this. I know it's weird because Ancient Copper Dragon is pretty specific for the D&D setting, but it's not so specific that you can't find ways to sneak it into other to other products like they're doing right here. So Zidane Tribal as Ragavan. The meme is funny, right? He's a friggin' monkey. He's a monkey pirate. This is what I mean by looking kind of trashy, right? It's basically ripped concept art. I mean, the art is fine, but it's just the art, because it's ripped concept art, it, instead of just having it being like a white card, you have this like sky bluish thing going on in the background to fill it out with something, but it looks so bad. The art, I'm not saying the art looks bad. But the makeup of the card just looks cheap. So cheap. Ugh. Nice to see a Ragavan reprint, though I don't know how much play Ragavan is even getting in Modern these days. But, ugh. Such a cheap looking card. Now, from cheap to sick, I think a lot of it really has to do with, is it just a piece of concept art that was on white versus a full-on like painting here? This Cloud Sea Jin is sick as hell. One, the art is super sick. It doesn't really, like, I don't really, in my brain, I'm not really, like, putting together a Jin as being a Nyxbloom Ancient. I feel like they kind of were like, you know, we just need another reprint of Nyxbloom Ancient, so let's put this Cloud Sea Jin here. But the art is so sick. And the fact that it's a full painting as opposed to just sort of a snippet of concept art makes it a lot better. Somebody in chat said, not to be a jerk, but in fairness, the art is not the best and the background is non-existent. Yeah. Basically what I said, though, I think the art's fine. It's clearly concept art, sketchy kind of thing going on here versus something that's a little more polished, like you see in the like Dragon of Mount Golg or Cloud Sea Jin. But to me, the big hit is just the blank nothing background and the drop shadow text box or whatever. That stuff really puts me off. And another example, here's Yuffie. The art, you know, pretty iconic Yuffie art, but this was one of the versions that was spoiled a while ago, and this is like almost exactly a FFTCG card. It's just some art that they had lying around in their vault, and they just put it there with you know, a monochrome background. And what am I doing here? Yuriko is a popular commander and a powerful commander, and Yuffie, being a ninja herself, works very well with Yuriko. I'm sure people prior to this printing proxied the Yuriko Yuffies for years and years, or maybe even altered Yuriko to be Yuffie for years and years. So the folks that want this are going to be like, sick, I have a officially licensed or officially sanctioned version of exactly what I wanted, but it just looks so trashy to me and I don't like it. And like you see like around here with like the drop shadow and stuff, it just like looks so ugly. Drop shadow's not the right word, like the bolding around it. It just looks so ugly. I didn't see this one. Oh, no, I did. Sephiroth the Savior as Atraxa. This one makes sense, you know, Savior Sephiroth, big one-winged angel. Atraxa is a Phyrexian angel. Big, powerful, art's nice. It is a little more, you know, this is part of a full piece, I think. Yeah, I think so. It's part of a full piece here. So even though the background is a little bit monochromatic, I think that's just how that piece was done, because you can sort of see the light rays going out here and extending beyond. Art's sick. Nomura art's sick. One of the better ones that they've had for these Through the Ages stuff. Yeah, not much to say else on here. And I think that's the end of what we've seen so far for the Through the Ages stuff. So I think that's everything that I wanted to talk about today. I don't believe, if I look at the where to find previews, I think we've already seen everything that's gonna be spoiled this weekend, because Square did their post last night, or for them it was Sunday, for us it was last night. And so depending on how much is getting spoiled over the whole week, I'll decide whether I want to do, you know, individual videos throughout the week, or whether I want to do a big wrap up at the end of the week like I did yesterday. That was 5 hours of looking through standard cards. I don't know if it'll ever be that much, though. There's going to be a lot of spoilers to keep going through, so I'll play it by ear. But thanks everybody for hanging out as I go through these cards. Hope you like my analysis. Again, for the Commander stuff, it's really hard to make a huge analysis because I don't have a huge breadth of understanding of Commander. I do play it, but I haven't played it for years and years. But hopefully still I was able to bring some analysis to those cards. And, you know, some people just like listening to people talk about cards, so glad I could be of help. Thank you to Scarlet, Riposte, Lol No, anyone else who was lurking and not chatting. Thank you as well, and I will see you next time I see you.